you look at this, and if the Blues get into the playoffs, this is potentially their matchup is against Colorado. And I think you may have put out something earlier this week about do you think the Blues can beat Colorado, or how many games can the Blues take against Colorado if they play them in a 7-game series? This is just one game, but we've also seen a little bit of how they played the last couple of games against Colorado. It's a far cry from that 8-0 loss they had the second game of the season.
Yep.
Does this team actually legitimately have a chance of pushing Colorado to the brink, if not beating them in a 7-game series? Because I think they kind of do. Everything kind of has to fall into place. But this team thrives as an underdog. We've seen it the past few years. They tend to win games where they're not even slated to even compete. Do they have a shot at beating a Colorado team in the playoffs if it comes down to it?
Go for it, Tom.
I was going to say, we kind of talked about this a little bit with Corey. And for one, Arizona is not confident about, or at least their fans aren't confident about pushing the Avalanche to the brink.
Understandable.
They're in the same boat we are, in a lot of ways. At least Corey Crenshaw is. I think I said maybe one game, maybe game 6 at the most. Even though they won today, look, it's one win against how many losses against the Avs this year? Yes, but I think they're capable of at least getting to game 6. I still am not confident enough to say they'll get to game 7. There's still this team's still got issues. And one of those issues is Parayko. Parayko was taken out of the game. He might be out again, which I know it hurts. It hurts. Even though he was not 100% since he came back, he's still a presence out there, and a presence that the Blues needed. He even at 80 or 70% or however much he was, I still appreciated having him out there. Mm-hmm. But if there's no Parayko, there's going to be a huge issue there against the Avs.
Definitely. Well, the other thing about that is, like I've said before, I'm fairly confident in a game 6, not in a game 7, but I'm fairly confident it can go to 6 games. But I expect 5, but I'm confident. I think that the Blues can pull one. I think the Blues can if we think about it, if we really break it down, I think the Blues can get a solid win in a 6-game series, and I think they can get a lucky win, a game where the Avs just don't play well, so that's what I think. That's my logic behind a game 6. If not, it's looking at the Colorado Avalanche right now, a lot of people have a hard time believing they're ever going to have an off game. Even this one, they did not have an off game. Colorado played really well. I don't know if you guys saw the deserve a win-o-meter. If you guys have heard of that, yeah. Colorado had an 85% deserve to win out of 500 simulations. So this was, this wasn't like a one-off for the Avs. They played great, and honestly, they did deserve to win. But the Blues just, the Blues never gave up.
And here's another problem too. If you're looking at a series with the Avalanche, the Blues record, and I don't have it in front of me. Obviously, I'm sitting by a lake, for God's sakes. There's, and my dad doesn't have Wi-Fi. But the Blues record against Colorado in Denver the last couple of years has been atrocious. And especially Jordan Binnington. Jordan Binnington has issues in Denver. It's I can't explain them, but he never seems to play well against the Avs in Denver. And of course, the Avs are going to have home ice. They'll have at least 4 games. So if the Blues are road warriors, like they were in the 2019 Stanley Cup, they're going to have to figure out how to break the bad juju in Colorado and get some wins in Colorado. Because as we know, the Blues at home during the playoffs can be, about a 500 team. So it's that's going to be a huge thing that they have to overcome. But you know what? I feel teams, to get to the promised land, to get to glory, if you will, they have to beat some demons to get there. Like, I know for the longest time, the Blackhawks were the Blues demons, especially like in the late 2000s, early 2010s. Troy Brouwer gets that game-winning goal in Game 7. Demon slayed. San Jose, the Blues in San Jose have some bad, memories, of the playoffs, especially the President's Trophy year. But just again, the Blues and California teams just don't mix. They beat San Jose in the Western Conference Finals to make it to the finals. So it just, they have to. It's just there is no easy path to the Stanley Cup, and the Blues will need to overcome not just themselves, but maybe just some, as I said, bad juju if they're going to win over the Avalanche in the playoffs, which I feel weird saying because I don't think that's going to happen.
We talk about how the Blues just aren't playing well. They get the good win today, but what happens if they go on a decent run? Joe, one of my co-hosts over on Crunch Time, said, with all this being said, if they finish the season on a decent run, does that change your perspective on if the Blues have the ability to go deeper in the playoffs? Let's say they roll off in a string of wins. They beat the Avalanche. They go in. Maybe they sweep Minnesota in the 3-game set, what have you. What if they end on a decent run and start to look better? Does that change your perspective on if this team can win in the playoffs?
You want this one, Mason?
Yeah, I'll take this one. It doesn't. The question isn't, posed at the end of the regular season. It's not, can this team go far in the playoffs? The question is right now. Do we want the team to go on a decent run? Do we want the team? Because nothing about this, I've said this 1,000 times. Nothing about this season has told us that they can go on a good run. Nothing. All right, we won 3 solid games, 1 against Vegas and 2 against Minnesota. That is it. And right after that, we shat the bed against Colorado. So I'm sorry. I'm still not convinced. So the question is, if the Blues can go on a decent run and finish the season strong, it's not a question of, can the Blues make it run into the playoffs at the end of this regular season? Right now, we're wondering, is it worth it? Do we want to just go for a lottery pick right now because we flat out know that we're not good enough? That's the question. It's not waiting until the regular season. Of course we want them to go on a decent run. And of course we want them to go do well in the playoffs. We want that more than freaking anything. And this past offseason has proven that we're ready to do that. But our play on the ice just hasn't shown that. If we can go on a decent run at the last end of the regular season and do well in the playoffs, go for it. I would love that more than anything. But right now, we just got to ask ourselves, is it worth it right now? Can we replicate the same performance that we did against Colorado and carry that over to the next game and then the next game and then the next game? All right. I'm not fully convinced that we can do that.
Well, and it's going to be tough because, they've got one more against Colorado on Monday night. Then they've got 3 in Minnesota. That's going to be Wednesday, Thursday, and next Saturday. They get a little bit of a reprieve against Anaheim at home on May 3rd and 5th. Then they have to travel to Vegas, travel to the Kings for a game, and then wrap up at home against Minnesota. It's not an easy road.
We said the same thing about the Anaheim Ducks 4 weeks ago. We said, all right, you're playing Minnesota. Your reward is 2 easy games against Anaheim. We lost both of them.
But we got a point in one of them, so that helps.
We lost both of them. You say that like, oh, we're gonna wipe over them after we take care of these guys. We're going to wipe over them. That's exactly what we said.
But that one point is what got us in the playoffs right now. That
care. We're not going to. You cannot talk about any game against any opponent and say it's an easy win. It doesn't work anymore.
Nope. It really doesn't. And
it doesn't.
It really doesn't. And I'm looking at the standings right now. And is it safe to say that there's really a disparity between like the top 9 teams and the rest of the league? Look at the standings. In the Central, you've got Carolina 67, Florida 65, Tampa Bay 64. Obviously, all 3 making the playoffs. And the fourth place team sitting at 54 points. Yes. In the East, you've got Pittsburgh at 65, Washington 64, the Islanders at 63, Boston's at 60, so that's a pretty competitive division. But then you got the North, Toronto 63, Winnipeg 57, Edmonton 56, then the drop-off of 49 to Montreal. In the West, Vegas 68, Colorado 66, Minnesota 63, and then the drop-off to the Blues at 46. We're just really setting up to have really about 7, 8 teams that really have a legitimate shot of going deep, and then everybody else. And it goes to your point. Do we want to see the Blues go through that? Even if they go on a decent run and get into the playoffs a little bit easier than where we're at now, do we really want to see them get destroyed by a Vegas or a Colorado? Or do we want to just count our losses and let this team rest?
Well, that's exactly the other point, because there is a big difference between there's a huge difference between all these teams and then everyone else. Okay, this is going to be one of those playoffs where if your team is out of a playoff spot, this is going to be the most entertaining playoffs to watch. If you're like a Detroit fan or a Sens fan, you are going to love these playoffs because there are so many teams that have the potential of winning. You know, there's no real clear-cut winner. We thought it would be Toronto, and then that happened against freaking Canucks. And then we thought the same thing about the Avalanche, and they did this. They did this game. They lost to the St. Louis Blues, who has been the single most disappointing team this entire season, next to, ironically, Boston. So the Blues absolutely have a chance of winning. They absolutely do if they stick to their guns and play Blues hockey. But I'm still not convinced that they have that motivation.
I'm right there with you. And unfortunately, Tom's cell connection decided not enough it had enough StreamYard for today. So
rest in peace, Tom.
Yeah, rest in peace. Remember, don't be a chump and play to the whistle. We'll get to that. Don't worry, Tom. We'll have the excitement of play to the whistle at the very end.
Of course.
Glad that he was able to jump in. Let's just keep talking a little bit more about what's going on with the Blues right now. Obviously, like we said, a tough schedule upcoming. I just don't even know where to go with this because it's.
Let's start with
so
no easy games once again. Let's start with the no easy games. Why aren't these teams? Why didn't we beat Anaheim? The reason we didn't beat Anaheim is because we flat out gave up. You know, we let Anaheim. I think Anaheim scored first in both those games, and we said, "Oh, we are screwed," and we just crawled in a shell for the rest of the game. That's why we lost those 2 games. That's why the Blues have been losing most of their games this year, is because they let themselves get scored on first, and then they're like, oh, shit, look at this predicament now. So I'm not sure where to take this either because we're all pissed. This team is coming off of a win. Signals. This is coming off a win, and we're still pissed.
Well, we talked a little bit about this on last week's episode with Corey. And for me, it's you look at it and you go, this team, when they face just a little bit of adversity, they fold. Now, that's not the case 2 years ago in 2019. Case in point, the hand pass game. That's the biggest adversity this team has faced in the last 10 years, probably. And what happened? They said, we're coming back next game. We're going to play that game, and we're going to win. They left it in the past and moved on. Well, now they can't even let a small thing go in a game and move past it. One single itty-bitty bit of adversity, and everything falls apart.
They fall apart.
They do. And now today you look at it, and it's like, okay, you get down 2-0. Well, they battle back. But that's because Ryan O'Reilly, like we said earlier, stepped up and said, I'm done with this. So do you see them actually being able to continue this down the road? Because, look, I'll say this. A couple weeks ago when Binnington had the we're coming quote, I was all for it. I know you weren't. But I was all for it because it showed me he had confidence. This team had confidence. They were getting ready to go on a run. It still was a tough schedule, but it had shades of 2019. Well, then the rest of the schedule happened. And now we're seeing this and we go, okay, Ryan O'Reilly put the team on his back. He basically showed them how to win. They came together. Hell, Mike Hoffman scored a goal and showed emotion today. Did you see the reaction after
he was like excited. He did the whole boom thing. Yes. You know, he was really excited. This is the most emotion we've seen out of him all season.
The only emotion I've seen out of him this season. So now you look at it and you go, okay, O'Reilly's working hard, carrying the team on his back. You're even getting guys like Hoffman showing emotion. Do we dare to believe that this team may have turned a corner, or do we have to have more consistency before we can actually believe again?
We need more consistency. way more consistent. Remember, the Blues lost. How many games did we lose before that? Like 5? Or did they have a 5-game losing streak?
They're on a 3-game losing streak, I believe.
3-game losing streak. Whatever. Losing streaks are losing streaks.
It felt like 12.
It felt like 12. We were on this losing streak, and we do one win game, and we're supposed to say, "Oh, we could be consistent the rest of the season." Frank, right off, buddy. All right, we're not. We just came off a 3-game losing streak, and we barely beat the Colorado Avalanche tonight. You know, the Blues absolutely should not have won this game. So don't even try to tell me, oh, we need more consistent. Or should we believe? Should we believe we beat the Colorado Avalanche after losing to them 3 games in a row? We should believe again? No! What are you new here?
But hold on, though. You got to look at this, though, okay? They come off of the 3-1 victory against Vegas, okay? They had the same issues against Vegas that they'd had against Colorado. They sucked. They came the 6-1 loss on that Monday night. I was at that game. They just looked listless. Mm-hmm. Then they came out and then they played a game just kind of like today where they said, we've had enough. We're going to play our best. And they went out there and they beat one of the best teams in the West. And then they backed it up with a 9-1 shellacking of Minnesota. Then they had the game on that Saturday against Minnesota where, like, that's a game that the Blues should have lost too. And yet they found a way to win that game. So at that point, you've got a 3-game winning streak. You've beaten one of your nemesises. Nemesi? I don't know what the plural form of nemesis. Yeah, nemesis. Make up words now. But then you go out and you beat a team that you haven't seen a whole lot of. They're still a good team. They were sitting third, and it puts you in range of getting into that third slot too. So you had confidence. And then for some reason, it's just like Tom said, they almost have a mountain to climb against Colorado. They come out, they're on that 3-game winning streak. The game's 1-1 going into the second period. They have the second period of hell, give up 3 goals, but then they fight back and make it close. Then that game against Arizona. That's Arizona. They get up to a 2-0 lead, and then they blow it. And then Colorado again. It's maddening, and you don't want to believe, but maybe this was a little bit of a step up that mountain. This isn't us cresting the mountain. This is us taking that first step to maybe getting over the hump. It's going to take a playoff victory, a playoff series victory, I think, for the mountain to be achieved against Colorado, and no pun intended, being the Avalanche and all. But you know, if they get the first step here,
shut up.
Maybe they take another step on Monday. Maybe it's not a dominant win, but maybe it's a 2-1 victory or something to that effect, where they take another step up that mountain. Then they don't play them the rest of the year. They get into the playoffs and they win a playoff series against Colorado. That right there can be a believable moment where maybe they crest that hill, but it is going to come down to that consistency, and it really comes down to Monday night. What kind of team do we see Monday night? Regardless of injuries, regardless of anything else, what team comes out in the first period, and what do we see that entire game?
Well, if the Blues want to show me consistency, they win 5 straight in 5 tough games. That's how they can prove to me that they're consistent. I don't want 3 like they did, like I said, the Vegas and then 2 Minnesota games. Not like 3. I want 5 solid games that are wins against tough opponents. That's what I want. If they can prove that, I will believe again.
Okay.
I will.
You heard it here, St. Louis Blues. You heard it here, St. Louis Blues. 5 straight victories.
Okay, not 5 straight victories. 5 really solid efforts.
Oh,
all right.
okay.
If you lose one because you lose one, oh well, teams lose. We know teams lose. If you give me 5 solid efforts, I'll believe again. But until then, I'm still on the train of go for a draft pick. I'm still on that train because I don't want, like I've said 1,000 times. Once again, I don't want to go into the playoffs to get bent over a table for 4 straight games against Colorado or Vegas. Most likely Colorado now. It's always been Vegas. Now it's Colorado. We got that shit to look forward to. That 5 solid efforts.
5 solid efforts.
I don't think that's too hard because every other team has given 5 solid efforts. Even Detroit has given 5 solid efforts, for being Detroit. They've given 5 solid efforts. So that means that equals 1 win. But, they play 60 minutes. We don't.
But see, that's kind of been the Blues' MO for the last decade. I mean, like you said, you've watched this team for the last 10 years. You could probably count on your hand how many times this team has played a full solid 60-minute game. I mean,
2019, back half of 2019 had a
about
fair
it.
bit of those. But other than that, no. And not in
So
playoffs, I'm talking, but no. I can't think of other than the 2018-19 season and the 15-16 season. Any other, I cannot, each of those seasons had maybe 5 60-minute efforts in each of those. Out of 82 games, that's terrible.
I mean, you're not going to sit there and say that 82 of those games need to be played 60 minutes. I mean, you're going to have off nights, but you need to have a majority of games played at a high level.
You need 60% of your games. You need 60, even 70% of your games have to be full 60 minutes. All right. We are lucky to get 10%. We're lucky.
So where does that come from though? Is that the coaching? Is it the management? Is that the ownership? What is it?
It's the mood in the locker room. They go down. They get scored on all the time. There's a reason why the Blues have the most comeback victories this year out of any team. It's because they go down all the time and they just find a way to win somehow. You know, it's the mood in the locker room. They lose. They say they pack it up way too early. You know, they do that all the time. Okay, they need like you go down by 1 goal, whatever. Keep playing. Who cares if you go down what? If you go down 2, still don't give up. You go down 3, still don't give up. Even if you go down 5, if you go down 8, let's say 8-0. If you go down 8-0, you know, fine, give up. I don't care. Like it's 8-0. You're not winning the game. I don't care. Just get on the freaking bus. But
I know, man. I know.
You're paid handsomely. Figure it out.
It's pain, man. It's pain. And like I said, this is coming off of a victory.
Yes.
So that's kind of what it is. A 5-3 victory today against the Colorado Avalanche. They came back from 2-0 down. They blew a lead again in the second period, but then they found a way to win. Blow a lead again, and
I forgot about that.
You did, right? You forgot. They were up 3-2. They blew a lead in the second period. The second period, you know, the minus 19 goal differential period.
The Blues can go down 2-0 in a game and still blow a lead. Do you realize that? The Blues can go down 2-0 in a game and still blow a lead. Does that not blow anybody's mind?
No, it blows. No, it blows everybody's mind. I mean, like, it's serious. Like, to your point, though, this is a team that has the most comeback wins in hockey. Shit. So they have the ability to score goals. That's the mind-boggling part of all this. They have the ability to score goals. They have the ability to stop goals from going in, because even if they go down early, they still have the ability to get back into games because of goaltending. Like, there's like bits and pieces here and there. You know what? Honestly, you know what we need? We need Guy, the Hawaii Blues fan, to create a recipe like he did with the Blues defense earlier this year before the season started about really what kind of ingredients this Blues team has and how to properly mix them together to get an actually good result. Instead of having some shit come out of the oven, actually have like some Hawaiian rolls come out of the oven. Like he needs to do something like that to where bring the ingredients of the Blues together to create something beautiful and magical versus kind of what the, you know, turd sandwich that we have kind of on our plates right now.
Let's make Guy our defensive coordinator, our defensive coach. Let's do that. Or even better, let's make him the general manager. He can't be that much worse than Armstrong, right?